Well, hello everybody and welcome to Lunchbreak Live. Real talk about obesity, food addiction, recovery, and what's really eating you. On today's show, yep, I'm going there. Alcohol and obesity. But before I dive in, let me tell you why you should listen to me. I am Carrie Dela Cruz, a 2007 gastric bypass post-op, living in recovery from obesity and compulsive overeating as twice the woman in half the body. Now, this is the part of the show where I generally check in with you guys, see how you're doing, see who's here, ask you a poll question. But you know what? I got a lot of pages I got to cover today, so I am going to set that aside. I'm going to dispense with that and just dive right on into the show if that's okay with you. But not before I do thank you for courageously being here. Who knows what this show is really going to be about, but I am really impressed that you guys are willing to spend some time with me to see what it is that I might have to say about it. So thank you for being here. Depending on where I end up, I will try to check in and call you out by name personally. So thank you so much. Now, I do 5 shows, pretty much every week, okay? And far from being like scheduled or planned in advance, where I could look at a schedule and say, well, this is what I'm going to talk about this day, and this is what I'm going to talk about that day. Lunchbreak Live is totally organic. It is a completely organic program, and it draws on inspiration from like what's going on in my life, current events, things that are happening to me right now. So in theory, that seems like a pretty good formula, right? I mean, it seems like it would be a really good idea because I live my recovery one day at a time, and recovery is about living life on life's terms. So if I'm doing a program one day at a time about how to live life on life's terms, well, that makes a whole lot of sense, don't you think? Unfortunately, when we go with that, what that means is I don't get to decide what life brings me, and I don't get to decide who's going to talk to me about different things like wine and cupcakes. I don't get to decide that. All right, so you would think, this is the funny part of this whole show today, okay? You would think that being honest about my life, I think I'm pretty honest on this show, pretty darn transparent about my obesity and my compulsive overeating. And I think you guys know where I come down. I have a pretty firm position on addiction and everything. You would think that would cause people to think twice about contacting me to discuss things like my support of wine and cupcakes. But it doesn't. It is the craziest thing, okay? And I never want to be rude. When someone contacts me and asks me something about something that I really adamantly oppose, I do not support, I still do not want to be rude or demeaning or self-righteous or anything like that, right? So when they contact me, I do everything I can to affirm my position without putting them down on theirs. Because look, we are all entitled to our opinions. We're all entitled to our beliefs and things like that, okay? And so theoretically, that seems pretty good, right? It seems pretty straightforward. It's like I have a position on things, and then someone contacts me, and what they're contacting me about may be in direct conflict for my position, but still, I'm not going to be rude about it. Oh my gosh, but things, they get messy in a hurry. It just doesn't always go the way it's planned. And as it turns out, look, addiction and obesity are a whole lot like religion. They just are, right? And like religion, there are zealots who will defend their dogma to the death. They just will. Okay, well, I consider myself to be a zealot who will defend my dogma to the life. Because that's what recovery is all about. It's about living, and I will defend that to the life. I don't stand on street corners with picket signs. I really don't. Some people do, but I do not. I don't go to bars and tell people that they're going to burn in hell if they drink. I don't go to bakeries and tell people that they are horrible people for eating baked goods. But if someone tells me that they struggle with baked goods, I'm going to tell them they shouldn't visit bakeries. I'm going to do that. And if someone tells me that alcohol runs in their family and they join this show because they struggle with obesity, okay, well, I'm going to remind them that addiction is a family disease. I'm going to do that. I'm going to remind them that if dad was an alcoholic or mom abused prescription pills, they should probably heed the warning of food addiction in themselves. Again, if they are exhibiting morbid obesity, that's not a far-fetched concern, not a hard connection to make. sometimes I really hate knowing what I know. I mean, I hate it. And I hate knowing that I am called to share what I know so that others might also know and be helped. It feels like such a burden sometimes. I really hate it, you know. And I woke up this morning and I said, please, God, no, don't make me do it. But the feeling didn't go away. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to go with it. But I am not going to apologize. This is really, really important, you guys. I'm not going to apologize because I know I'm sharing this knowledge, what it is that I'm going to be talking about today, from a place of love. Absolute, total love and compassion. And I am not trying to gain approval from others. I'm going there today because maybe if I go there, someone else won't go there. That is why I'm doing this. I also know that there are going to be a lot of people that want to tar and feather me and call me intolerant, judgmental, hypocritical, holier than thou, self-righteous, and a teetotaling hardliner. Totally fine. Yeah, you can call me that stuff if you want to. As long as it means all of those things, that I'm willing to fight an unpopular fight if it means that even one person will be saved. So that's where I'm going with this today. Okay? So with that said, here we go. Are you guys ready? Quite a setup, don't you think? Addiction is a family disease that does not look the same on everybody. It looks different on everybody because addiction is not a substance. It's an unhealthy behavior. It's an unhealthy state of mind. And not everyone with obesity is addicted to food. But clearly, people who are not treating their morbid obesity are consuming too much something for their body. You can't argue with that, okay? So they are over-consuming something. Do not talk to me about exceptions. Do not come at me and say, oh, yeah, but you know what? Not everybody's eating too much. Not everybody that's obese is eating too much. You know what? Those are exceptions. And they're called exceptions for a reason, because they are in the minority. And I really thought I was in the minority, but I realized I was in the majority. Okay, so if you want to put yourself as an exception, you know, and be in the minority and say, oh, no, I'm not obese because I eat too much, fine. Then maybe you're probably not going to want to hear what I have to say next. But I am not beating someone up because they are in denial or they think they're an exception. I am just hopeful that maybe they will begin to hear that it's okay. They don't have to be ashamed if they're contributing to their disease. Now, before I began treating my disease and living in recovery, I absolutely believed I was an exception. I believed I was different. And obesity wasn't my fault, or more accurately, I believed I was not contributing to my disease. I absolutely believed that. I had all kinds of reasons that I was not responsible because being responsible hurt too much. That was just it. And I had so much shame. That was like the death knell if I had to own my part of my disease. And then I had bariatric surgery, okay? And this is kind of a funny metaphor or analogy, but the scales fell from my eyes. Okay, in that moment, I realized I had been contributing to my disease and I had been overfeeding the things that ate me up. And I needed to stop doing that if I wanted to live in recovery. I was going to have to stop feeding those things. And one of those things that I was going to have to stop feeding and face was the fact that I was feeding a binge eating disorder and I didn't know it. Okay? Because not all people with binge eating disorder look like they're dealing with a binge eating disorder. So in other words, I weighed, whatever I weighed, half of my body weight, right? That from my high. And I didn't look like I had a binge eating disorder. But I did because I compulsively overate certain things. Like a locust on a 100-year plague, okay? That was me. It's like, oh my God, if it's not moving too fast to get a fork into, I'm eating it. I am scarfing it up. And I felt really, really horrible about myself. But thanks to therapy, which that's a drum I am going to beat until the day I die. Thanks to therapy and a 12-step program, I learned that I am an addict. Absolutely. Of course, this was a fact that totally shocked me to the core because how could I be an addict if I didn't drink or do drugs? Right? That was my perception. How could I be an addict if I did not drink or do drugs? Because those were the only people I knew could be addicts. The funny thing was I knew addicts. Absolutely. My grandfather, he was in AA. And he had 23 years sober by the time he died. And he had sponsored many, many people. And and helped them to choose to save their lives from alcohol, okay? And I hated alcohol. You guys have heard me say this before. I hated it, so I knew that I would never have a problem. That was my conclusion, right? So in other words, addicts are people who drink, and I didn't drink, so I wasn't an addict. That was my conclusion. But once I began to understand the disease of addiction and how it manifests itself differently in different people, I began to see that I had an extremely addictive personality, compulsive personality, and my drugs of choice were snacks, baked goods, candy, chips, junk carbs, Diet Coke, basically processed crap, okay? Not every obese person has a problem with processed crap. I understand that. Not every one of us does. I did. Not every obese person has a problem with processed crap. Some of them consume too much quality food. Okay? It's not processed crap. Oh, they just love food and they love quality food and they'll just consume too much of that. And then they don't exercise enough to burn it off. But the thing is, addiction is not picky, you guys. It's just not. So it's not about quality at all. It is not, and when I say quality, I don't mean it's not about high quality or low quality. It does not care what you are eating. It does not care if you are over consuming processed crap or high quality crap. If you're over consuming it, it's too much, which means you can just as easily become obese eating $600 chocolate truffles as you can $1.99 ding dongs. No difference, no distinction. So don't tell me that you're a better addict because you consume $600 truffles to my $1.99 ding dongs. An addict is an addict. Addiction is addiction. Again, very strong words from me, my very strong opinion. And guess what? It is the same with alcohol, believe it or not. A lot of people think that alcoholics only drink wild turkey or peppermint schnapps or two-buck chuck or Miller beer. Okay? Those are because it's not about quality. They're just about the cheap buzz, the cheap high, right. That's what they're all about. Because if they drank the good stuff, they wouldn't drink so much. That's what people say. So in other words, quality apparently defines the addict. Okay, but I remind you of the $600 chocolate truffle. Okay? So there's this problem, I think, of narrowly defining addicts by their drug of choice. So street drugs make you a drug addict, but prescription drugs don't. And drinking high-priced craft beer makes you a connoisseur. But drinking Old Milwaukee in a can makes you a drunk. Enjoying quality cuisine makes you an Epicurean. Eating Taco Bell makes you fat. Do you see what I'm saying? There is this mentality out there. And I believe that that is ignorance. That's just ignorance of addiction. And wanting to believe that there is a distinction. But there really isn't. Then there's what I call I know what addiction looks like and it's not me. That's what, addiction ran in my family. Okay, I hear people say this. My dad was an alcoholic, but I'm not. Because I only drink fine wine. So I'm not an alcoholic. But here's the problem. You're morbidly obese. Okay? So maybe, just maybe you're in remission for your obesity, but your compulsive overeating is a problem. So why would compulsive overdrinking be something you wouldn't do and shouldn't worry about? Do you follow me? That is the crux of it. This is the thing that drives me nuts. My dad was an alcoholic, but I am not, but I overeat. But why do you think I would overdrink? Gee, I don't know. It seems pretty logical to me that there is a possibility, a very high probability, because we are predisposed. If we're dealing with morbid obesity, I think we are predisposed to over-consuming things. That's what I think. I know addiction, and I am not an addict because I love this, okay? This is the argument, ready? I know addiction, and I'm not an addict because he drank too much, but I won't. I can handle my liquor. Oh, sure, I can't handle my food, which would indicate that I'm prone to addiction, but if I say it won't be a problem, then it won't be a problem. And people say this with a straight face. And people say this as if this is logically, that this makes sense, that this is logical. I can't be an addict because my dad, who was an addict, drank too much, but I won't because I can handle my liquor and he couldn't, even though I can't handle my food. So that would make you think that I might be prone to over consuming. But again, no, it won't be a problem because I'm going to say it won't be a problem, and then it won't be a problem. Okay, well, I've said it before, I'm not an addictionologist, you guys, okay? But I can say that addiction tears families apart, and it propagates itself by lying, like the serpent in the garden. Oh, you can eat this apple. Other people can't, but you can. That's how it propagates itself. Plausible deniability. Oh, yeah, it's a problem for other people, but it won't be for you. But you have this other problem over here, but that's food, and this is alcohol. I mean, the two things totally different. Totally different, right? Want to know what breaks my heart? Big time? Children of alcoholics who grow up and become alcoholics. Breaks my heart. Why does that happen? Why? I mean, especially when they are so fierce in their convictions that they will never do to their kids what was done to them. I will never drive drunk with kids in the car. I will never make a fool of myself by getting drunk at the family barbecue. I will never do that. But I will eat too much at the family barbecue, and then I'll be so big, I'll be embarrassed to go to the family barbecue again, which means that my kids will either have to go without me or not go at all. But I don't drink. I eat too much. It's a big difference there, right? Well, you guys, here's another. I'm going to call it, I don't want to call it a lie, but I'm just going to say it's a misunderstanding, a colossal misunderstanding. I had weight loss surgery because I needed something that would stop me from eating too much. And now I don't eat too much. I just enjoy a good glass of wine or a margarita. I know my parent was an alcoholic, but I can handle my booze. They couldn't. What? I couldn't handle my food? Well, you can't be addicted to something you need in order to live. Different situation altogether. Yeah. But, as the person continues to think, I always wondered what it was about the alcohol that was so important my parent chose it over me. I wonder if my kids will wonder what was so important about the food that I chose it over them. Probably not. Different problem. Is it though? Is it really? That's my frustration. That is what we tell ourselves to protect ourselves, to make ourselves feel better, to make ourselves feel like we're not addicts, to prove that we're better people than the people that did this to us, yet we go right on doing it to others. That's my frustration. Addiction is nothing to mess around with, and neither is obesity. So if you're morbidly obese and you're vigilantly treating your obesity, maybe it's through bariatric surgery, I don't know. I believe you have to be just as vigilant at not entertaining substances and behaviors like alcohol and drugs and shopping and gambling and promiscuity. All of those things that are really just different branches of the very same tree. I am not judging you. I'm not judging you. I am warning you that if you play with fire, you will get burned. You are no different than anyone else when it comes to addiction. And if you think you are, that is your addiction talking. I will not make an addict out of anyone. I won't do that. But if you say you have a problem that you don't stop once you start, okay? If you tell me that, then I'm going to tell you not to start something new, or that something new will quickly become a new problem for you, okay? If cancer runs in your family, you get checked regularly, and then you don't do things that contribute to cancer. Why would you treat addiction any differently? So, that is my statement on this issue of people who somehow think that magically they're different and that they'll outrun it and it won't get them because they're smarter, or they understand addiction, and addiction isn't what they have to worry about. That's for other people. And I want to say, if you're morbidly obese, you might want to rethink your position on that. Again, I'm not making an addict out of anyone, but I'm saying you're obviously compulsive about a few things. What makes you think that the compulsion would stop at food? Now, I am sharing this today because I have received lately a spate of inquiries and invitations to support people who are doing something that they want to do, and that's fine. They can do that. However, it distresses me because these people know about me because we share something in common. We share morbid obesity in common, okay? So in other words, the reason they know me is because they know that I talk about living in recovery from obesity and food addiction. And they know my position very strongly about alcohol. I am a hardliner. I am, because I know where it leads. And I say, don't do it. Don't start. You don't have to start. I have seen it ruin lives. I have seen it ruin the lives of people that say, I didn't know. I didn't know what happened. And before I knew it, it was happening and I couldn't stop. I almost died. I needed a liver transplant because there I was in catastrophic liver failure in the hospital, all because I didn't know. I never liked alcohol before, but all of a sudden I couldn't say no. I have heard these stories, and so I have taken it upon myself to warn people that yes, it does happen. Yes, it can happen. So I'm pretty out there, I think, on my show every day. So when it is that someone comes to me and says, yeah, but don't you want to help me to help other people to drink more? And I say, no, I really don't. And then they say, why not? Well, because I worry about addiction and I worry about transference from food to alcohol. And the person or people say to me, oh yeah, alcoholism runs in my family. I know addiction, okay? That's not my problem because people don't get drunk on high quality booze. Well, it sends me around the bend because I just say, I can't save you from yourself. I can't save you from that kind of thinking. But by golly, I am certainly going to go out there and share what I'm very passionate about and run the risk of alienating people. Run the risk of people deciding that they don't like my brand of honesty, so they can't tune in anymore. I'm running that risk in the hope that maybe, just maybe, one person will say, I never thought of it that way. I didn't realize what was happening. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to become a statistic. I'm willing to listen, all right? That is the whole reason for this show today. So I'm going to sign off. I'm not even going to talk to your comments right now. I will look at them offline for sure. But I will thank you for being here, for courageously showing up to listen to what I have to say about this. It's okay if you don't agree with me. It's okay. I don't like you any less, okay? I worry about you if maybe you're walking a line that I worry is going to lead to a really, really big problem, okay? I worry about you, but it doesn't mean that I don't like you, okay? So I'll leave you with that. And I will remind you all to have courage and seek peace, embrace joy, and above all, choose to live an honest recovery. Remember, you can't stop feeding what's eating you if you don't know what's eating you. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Share the show. Bye.